Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant, and today, if you don't know this already, having seen the first video first, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Two short videos with approximately the same content from slightly different perspectives. Here, in this video, I want to talk very briefly about Canon's just announced EOS RP. But in order to do that, I want to replay for you part of an analysis. It's exactly the same so far. I did a little more than 5 months ago, before either the X-T3 or Canon's EOS R hit the market. If Canon introduces a compelling enough full-frame mirrorless camera, this one, at aggressive, call it APS-C or micro four thirds prices, say anywhere between $1,100 and $1,400, because remember the 62 is just $200 more, will that spell the beginning of the end for crop sensor and higher priced full-frame hybrid cameras generally? A body blow not only to Panasonic, Fuji, and Olympus, but Sony. And now, just as it's preparing to ship the Z7, Nikon. Will that price cover a multitude of sins if the EOS R's functionality is a disappointment? Or, if the functionality is not good enough, the experience not special enough, the price not radical enough, does it tell us that Canon is incapable of doing anything other than bloodying the waters further? A red ocean approach that, somewhat counterintuitively, leads to the possible consequence of flipping the industry around altogether, especially given, minor drumroll please, Fuji's rumored X-T3. I know. Where did that come from? Well, from here. If the EOS R fails to impress, if it actually sullies full-frame credibility by making other considerations from number of card slots to ergonomics, frame rates, 4K recording, crop factors, IBIS, EVF, the joy of shooting, more important, and if the X-T3 is compelling enough at a breakthrough price at that level of its own with fully sorted autofocus and IBIS, maybe its own 3.7 million dot EVF, will it be a convincing argument for those of us looking at the R or the Z that full frame is a false messiah? Bottom line, the R was functionally less than what many people had hoped. Lack of IBIS, the existence of a 1.8x 4K crop, haptically challenged multifunction bar, single card slot, blah, 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 at a price more than many people had expected, $2,400. Meanwhile, the X-T3 was functionally more than many people had hoped, lack of IBIS being the primary disappointment on the one hand, but dramatically improved AF, internal 10-bit 4K recording, and 3.5mm mic and headphone jacks on top of all the original X-T2's goodness on the other, at a price less than many had expected, $1,499 then, $1,399 now, which didn't make the R a terrible camera, but it did make it a more difficult sell. With today's announcement of the EOS RP, the lightest, smallest, and at $1,299 least expensive full-frame mirrorless out there today. In other words, the camera with which Canon should have launched the new RF mount series several months ago, in my book, and yes, of course, your mileage may vary and reasonable people can disagree, Canon is now 2 for 2, a day late, a product cycle short, and more than a couple of slices shy of a compelling functional loaf, given the simultaneous announcement of Fuji's $899 X-T30. While the RP inherits the same 1.8x 4K crop of the R, it houses a lesser sensor than the R, closer, if not identical to the one in the Canon 6D Mark II, same single card slot. It inherits the same lack of IBIS, while simultaneously losing the signature features of the R, including the multifunction bar and beautiful 3.7 million dot EVF, even 24p in 4K. It inherits the new RF lens line, but that's a bit of a head scratcher. I mean, why offer the world's least expensive full-frame camera? Why make that the selling point when it can only take some of the most expensive mass-market full-frame lenses out there, especially when another signature feature, dual-pixel autofocus, is simply not available at all in 4K video? Contrast this with the $899 X-T30, which inherits the X-T3's brilliant 24-megapixel Trans-X sensor, the new quad-core processor, excellent autofocus, touch menu system, film simulations, and basic operating principles, if not quite the same dial layout, the dual card slots, or the 3.7 million dot EVF, for $500 less than the X-T3, $400 less than the EOS RP, yet also inheriting the very same mature and optically excellent full lens lineup. Full frame or not, Canon's RP just blew a big hole in the notion that full-frame mirrorless is the holy grail. I think, and again, your mileage may vary, it is dead on arrival. And Fuji X-T30 notwithstanding, the RP also makes one of our favorite cameras, the Micro Four Thirds 1299 G9, suddenly a dramatic, easier sell than yesterday, with the G9's superior EVF, incredible IBIS, fantastic ergos, including a flippy screen, dual card slots, pixel shifting, and more, like the huge selection of native mount lenses already out there. As it does Sony's 898 A6400 with real-time tracking AF. And I imagine this will make a number of early adopters of the R less than thrilled. Wow. The question is, what are we actually seeing here? What's going on? In the end, I think in Canon, we're seeing a company which made a series of decisions that those of us familiar with the Boston Consulting Group's matrix model would recognize as everything from milking the cow, that is, pulling as much profit out of slow-growth, high-market share products as possible, in this case, DSLRs and the legacy EF and EFS lens lines, to refusing or delaying investment in mirrorless and IBIS because they didn't see these technologies as rising star categories, at least for them. Fair enough. High growth rate, high market share. And instead saw them as what we used to call problem children. High growth rate, low market share. As Canon's recently reported patent on IBIS indicates, I'd wager the lack of IBIS in Canon's cameras is not, as is so often suggested, because they believe that no sensor-based IBIS is an optically superior choice to lens-only image stabilization. This is not because Canon is stupid or greedy or dismissive of what its customers want. Well, I'm not at all sure about that last one. I guess Canon took a calculated risk that the collapsing unit volumes of the camera industry would make investment in new glass and new technology for consumer and professional hybrid cameras less attractive than investing, say, in the defense or surveillance industry, which in fact it did. Back in 2015, a critical inflection point when Sony in particular, and Leica for that matter, chose to invest in camera technologies when it acquired Axis, a network video surveillance company, for $2.8 billion, the largest acquisition in the company's history. I guess they also figured they'd have enough time to turn things around if they calculated wrongly. But hey, what do I know? If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, join the conversation below. You guys continue to be just incredible, knowledgeable, inspiring, funny. I mean, you're a joy, truly. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Grab one or both of our new Hold That Thought t-shirts you wanted us to put up at our new 3BMEPthreadless.com store. Support our work by using our affiliate links down below in the show notes, dropping us coffee money via our PayPal link down below in the show notes, or even better than that, we invite you to become a patron of our work over at Patreon. Link down below. We've created our Patreon page because we are stoked to bring you not only gear reviews, but with our What Were You Thinking and Good World Gone Bad series, historical, educational, artistic morsels, and longer form conversations, not interviews, with world-class photographers, curators, gallery owners, keepers of the legacy, folks like Elliot Irwitt, Anya Sear, Mark Lubell, Ethelene Staley, and friends like Brian Smith, Paul Giroux, Nino Rakicevic, and more. We'd really like you to join us to deliver this kind of content regularly. Your support on Patreon will really help us ramp it up. In which case, as always, we thank you for it. That's it. For Three Blind Men and an Elephant, I'm Hugh Brownstone. See you next time.